it's got that vanilla-ness to it, so.
Oh, we're live.
Oh,
Sure.
live.
People want to hear that.
Listen,
The
people do not need to know my secret ingredient to my Calypso sweet tea.
as they care.
Yeah.
The best sweet tea place tea place I've ever been to is a place in Texas called H2O. Have you heard of that, John?
Mm-mm.
Being from Texas is so huge, but that's all they do is tea. And it's just like their water, and I think they have like 30 or 40 flavors. And so I had coconut tea, which sounds kind of gross, but it was amazing. Unsweet. So, and they're huge. They beat Sonic 144 ounce drink all
So
the time.
coconut, was it coconut oil in it, you think?
I have no idea.
Flavoring?
Like you, they would not tell me their secrets.
Dang it. Come on.
How y'all doing today?
Doing good this morning,
Yeah.
except for not everybody wants to see it up close, but I'm getting another sty in my eye, and this is the third one within, I guess, and the last one was last March, and so
Yeah.
almost been a full year since I've had one, but still 3 this fast, and mine don't go away in 3 days. Mine sticks around for
Yeah.
a month.
Man, I'm
So,
sorry about that. Well, everybody, welcome to the
Yeah,
next
welcome.
Minute with the Ministers, where first we do some health diagnosis problems.
Yeah.
We're
Sponsorships. Don't forget our sponsorships.
Yeah, John's got our sponsorship this morning. Who are we sponsored by, John?
Today's Sun Chips, Garden
Sun
Salsa.
Garden Salsa. That's great. And so that's who we're sponsored, unofficially sponsored.
We're the only people that
this
get sponsored by stuff that we actually have to pay for. How does that work?
That's that's how people know it's the real deal, because we would actually use it
That's true.
instead of, yeah. So, but we're sitting down for a few minutes talking about all the things, Sermon on Sunday, and we are in Mark 8, where Jesus, kind of a famous passage if you've been in church for a little bit, because it's very like movie-esque in my mind. Like Jesus, this is kind of one of those speeches. If you must deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. It kind of has that punch of kind of a movie type speech, even though it's not a movie speech, but it's just very, I hear all the emotion in Jesus when I hear this verse. And he says some things that I think that John was talking about that are kind of like in the make you do a double take, like what? And one of those things is when he says, like, your righteousness must surpass that of the Pharisees. And then this other thing he says in this passage is about how you have to take up your cross. And I made the comment on Sunday that it's kind of like the long, dark road down to the electric chair. And it's true, because that's what Jesus is saying. Like, once you pick up this cross, you're in. Like, you don't, there's no turning back. But on the other hand, like Hebrews 12:2 comes to mind, where he says that, let me pull that up so I get it right. Hebrews 12:2 says, let us keep our eyes on Jesus, who is the author of our faith. In view of the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So it's not like a sad walk down the thing. Like Jesus, like he endured this for the joy set before him. So John, this has been on your mind. Help us think through like that mix of joy and at the same time the reality of like the death metaphor that Jesus uses.
Yeah, I think even, as you're going through in your sermon and preaching it, that it really entails like what Jesus is saying for the cross part. And when, for us reading it real fast, reading through it, getting to either imagine the story or allowing ourselves to bypass what Jesus is saying, because we know the ending. Like we know we get this life resurrected. And so sometimes we don't really see this first audience when they're hearing cross and what it means, that there's lots of others who were executed by Romans upon a cross. And so that analogy just becomes really, really deep. Not only really deep, I think, for the first century audience that hears it, but also just because of what that meant for them, what's going on, and they're still not realizing what Jesus will perform on a cross. They're still just outside of that on timeline. And so it brings a little bit of a picture of what we do have to deny, about how much we have to die to ourselves, while at the same time listening to these other pieces of scripture that do talk about, hey, follow me because my yoke is easy, my burden is light. John 10 comes in and says, hey, I came so that you may have life, and life to the full. And so there's almost like this double take where it's not a long, dark walk to the electric chair. It's really hard to kind of mesh those in together and really know, hey, where am I living life to the fullest as I continue to deny myself, as I continue to take up my cross, as I continue to look towards, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say it this way, but I'm not sure if this is the way to say it. But as I look forward to death, to experience that life to the full. But I don't know. So I come to my mind real fast too is just a bunch of resurrections that Jesus experiences with, the little girl, the boy on the coffin, Lazarus. So there's this death here, but then there's this life that is just given that renews all of that. And so I think it's a good moment to just really allow yourself in your Christian walk and your discipleship as you're following Jesus. Like there's some things to wrestle, and let's wrestle with them, and let's have these conversations that allow us to draw closer to Christ while we deny ourselves.
What do you think, Dave? Like this idea of denying, because I don't know if I explained it well Sunday. I think my main trying to be like once you're in forever. But it is, following Christ should be a joyful thing. And at the same time, there's parts in the New Testament where like Paul was ready to die for the sake of like all the turmoil he went through. And so it's definitely some like ironic's not the right word. What's a word that we can use like this that has all the things of Christian life they're in together? Because it's not just one big party, right?
Right.
I think you guys are both right on, and I agree with you 100%. There's this paradoxical tension, I guess you could say,
Yeah,
like
that's the word we were looking for.
Oh, we got it. Okay. Woo, all right.
Paradox.
I get a free bag of Sun Chips. Yes. No. I think, I think, it's kind of tough because the double take, I think, is because there is some shock in what he's saying. Like what, like take up your cross and follow me, and it's a prediction of his death. The next prediction comes in Mark 10. And like really the first 8 chapters of Mark is what our house churches are reading this week. And it really is, these 8 chapters is trying to let us know, who is this Jesus and what does it mean that he's the Messiah? And then, we're left with, what does that have to do with us? And I think we need to acknowledge that the imagery is shocking and it's powerful, and it is kind of a hard pill to swallow. And I'm just kind of left with, I cannot take up my cross and live for Christ apart from Christ. It's like I can't do any of that except for the fact that he is with me, and he's done it. He went to the cross obediently. He went to the cross as the joy set before him, and Paul kind of picked up on that, make my joy complete by being like-minded and having this mind of Christ, and so it's kind of like we take this whole story of Jesus and his life and his death and his resurrection, and that becomes our story because we are with Christ and he's with us. And so we still have the tensions though, because he is asking us to follow him. And he is asking us to deny ourselves, and we still have all of those imageries. But I think the positive side of it is that we've got him, and that's how we can wear the cross necklaces, and that's how we can have and recapture all the life-giving side of it, because he's completely taken all of those shocking kind of images and ideas and flipped them over, because he's conquered death, he's come back to life. He's ruling and reigning, and he's God, and so there is kind of a worship and a joy and a yes side of it, even though it is kind of a denying, and it's a giving to others instead of just taking for yourself, because that's what Jesus did. So yeah.
Well, let's flesh that out, like that denying myself. So for me, like when I think of that, I think of how just kind of privileged my life is. Life is very comfortable is what I mean. Like I have a very comfortable living. And so it's hard for me to think through like what denying myself actually looks like. That's not just weird, even though maybe it is weird, but like in our cases, we try to contextualize the gospel a little bit to what it means in 21st century America. Like, can you all help me flesh out, like, as I deny myself? So for me, the first thing that comes to mind, I think for us is if criticism ever comes, you don't always have to feel the need to speak up, would be a way to deny yourself. And so what other in that vein, that's like a real practical, if you want to deny yourself, take up your cross, like what does that mean for us in America today? I think it's easier, maybe someone in a third world country, not easier because their life is way harder. And I'm just going to stop talking, but because I'm going to dig myself into a hole. But
I'll give John a couple of minutes to formulate his amazing
response.
But our natural tendencies is to defend ourselves in that situation, right? Like you're coming against me, you're criticizing me, you're telling me something negative, I'm going to be defensive as first response. Like my mindset is in defense of me and what's best for me, not okay, what's best for others or how can I give to others, so someone comes to you with a criticism. What is that criticism coming out of? Like, what are they really trying to say? Did you stir up some kind of hurt or something that they have going on that they just really need some connection? They need you to listen and hear, so is that a way of them kind of reaching out by them lashing out, so it's like denying yourself. Like, I feel like you're attacking me personally, but I want to know what's really going on. Let's talk about you and help me understand where you're coming from, so I think, and that was the same in the first century world. It was, how do I make myself look good and how do I gain more honor and how do I improve my social standing in society? And so I take advantage of people if it makes me look good. And Jesus is like, no, I'm going to go and take on the most shameful thing in public, this crucifixion. I'm going to go to the cross. And I've done this because all of my teachings have been, if you want to gain your life, you're going to lose it. If you want to be first, you're going to be a slave, so, so yeah, I think it's that natural tendency for us to do what's best for us instead of what's best for others.
It's a good way of thinking about it. I think of people from Little Rock Church who have been involved in things like foster and adoption care. And then I think of people who are part of our church community who aren't like, they're not there as a checklist, but they're like, I'm digging into these people. And so they give up their time and the resources to say, I'm going to be connected through thick and thin to these people. And that may be a way. I like what you had said, Dave. What about you, John? Like how do we deny ourselves?
I think there's a lot of depth there. But one thing that just runs to my mind is that when we do youth trips, like we go through these little things that we have 5 rules that kind of go on our fingers. And the first one always help them remind it is like, you're not number one. Like there's 20 people on the trip here. There's other people that are coming along with us. And that it is to be thinking about what benefits us as a group and not just, hey, what do you want out of it? Whether that's classes or whether that's traveling, whether that's first in line for dinner or whatever, that you just have this little bit of kind of our first rule was part of this, deny this aspect of me, or grab, obtain, to an aspect of like, man, this is community. This is the others that I got to think about. These are the people that I'm around that allows myself to dive deeper into the spiritual life and what's going on. I think when we talk about even kind of our vision statement and the mission that has been before Little Rock Church forever about love God, love others, that there's just this, there's almost a denial there because, man, I don't even get to pop up. And in fact, when I read those scriptures and we talk about paradoxes here, it's love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. And it's like, well, what's left? And I give that to the students all the time. It's like, the next part's love your neighbor. And I'm like, well, but with what? Because I'm doing all the rest with my heart, mind, strength, and soul for God. I don't know if I have anything left for my neighbor, which definitely means I don't have anything left for me to put myself or promote myself above them. So denying yourself to taking up that cross is just a little bit of, others from their needs, from just their communication, from whatever we can do to say, hey, I'm part of a group, I'm part of a community, I'm part of a kingdom. That's not me in the lordship. That is absolutely Jesus Christ in that spot. And so I deny myself so that I can live inside this and make the kingdom better.
What comes to mind too for me is like maybe if I had a second sermon with this and could go back and do part A, would be Jesus's immediate context to those disciples, especially in light of what he's about to say with being ashamed of him. in the context of what Peter's about to do and how all the disciples are going to run away. And there may be something there that's specifically not, I mean, it's implicable for all of us without a doubt. Like this is a call for all of us, but also that uniqueness of what the disciples were about to go through and how they were all going to run away from Jesus. Because I don't remember where it's at in scripture, but Paul, like he goes to some vacation spot. They don't call it a vacation spot, but like he chooses to go to a nice city with one of the guys, Timothy, I think, Titus, one of them, somewhere in there,
reading it.
Somewhere in the middle.
I think I got some books on my shelf. Let me see.
Yeah, and I don't. I'm just in a hotel lobby. But there's like that. I think of too. It's just a bigger conversation of like how self-care plays into denial, and if that's a legitimate thing for Christians, and taking care of yourself so you can take care of other. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, I was at the same place, Riley, and I was like, denying yourself doesn't mean neglect yourself. I think.
Yeah,
That's how we've kind of twisted it and perverted it. I think because it's like I'm gonna, that image that Paul uses of kind of like beat my body into submission or something. Where and we think I've got to abuse myself, and it's like, well, at some point that's not really helping anybody, you or anybody around you, so I think that's kind of a hard, like, we think in those terms when we think deny yourself. It's like, I got to do something that I absolutely hate that may not be the healthiest thing for me. And as a result, I'm going to be a whole lot meaner and uglier to the people around me because I'm hungry or, I heard
I'm anxious about everything.
Yeah. I heard a bodybuilder that was denying themselves in order to get their body fat down, and they're like,
it was me.
I was willing to like hurt somebody for a cookie, and I'm like, so if you ever see a bodybuilder, just give them a cookie because they need
a cookie.
So
I think of parents. I think of parents like denying themselves for the sake of their kids, and it's like this. Maybe that's a great analogy of like there's this joy that solid parents have in taking care of their kids, but they also have to deny themselves some things to get the job done. And that's a hard lesson to learn. Those are hard things to do. Man, that's good. That's helpful for me. Appreciate your all's thoughts. So we've got a new sermon series coming in 2 weeks, which I can't wait for. We were supposed to do this last year, and because of COVID, we'll just say COVID ruined everything. And we're going to be 6 weeks in the book of Revelation. It's called Behold the Lamb, which in the book of Revelation, John, he's writing to real people with real kind of pastoral situation of they have all these temptations that want to lead them away from faithfulness in Christ. And so John's book, this Revelation, I think sometimes we miss the forest for the trees in this book, and really, but it's a call. The number one command in the book is to behold. And I think which is like 30 times John uses that word behold. And then I think the second one is repent. And so it's this really idea of like same thing as what we've been talking about this morning, like follow Jesus, keep your eyes on him. And so it's going to be a couple of things in this series. One, it's going to be real practical. In that it's going to help us. We're not going to get into the weeds of it. Secondly, I want to help everybody kind of have a better footing on how to read the book, because I feel like a lot of the discussions are unhelpful. It would not have meant anything. It shouldn't mean more to us than it did to the people in the first century. So, they weren't thinking tanks and drones and all that stuff. That's a bunch of nonsense. Sorry for anybody who's listening and has always believed that, but it's nonsense. And there's more Old Testament allusions.
We're going to definitely upset some people with this series, right?
Yeah, I hope not. I hope people. Well, if someone is like that, they have this firm idea of that this is really for 2021 with military and like if your commentary on Revelation is going to have to change in 20 years, then you're probably not going to like it. But if you're like, what we're going to go through is still going to be relevant in 20, 30, 40, 100 years, then you'd be like, this is a series I can get behind. And really, it's about God's victory. So I'm excited about that. What else we have going on? The videos, John, we got videos coming out?
We do got some videos coming out. I think, I don't know, I think Dave or Russ, somebody's coming out next. So
nice. Woo!
Ciao, everybody.
So watch those, everybody. Anything else we have that the people need to know about?
One more week of gospel culture. So it's kind of like kind of like a wrap up of how do we create a gospel culture, practically, specifically, right? So, yeah. So yeah, and honestly, for whatever reason, I think it's just been a great series. It's just been a great way to start the year. Great conversation, amazing things happening among our house churches. I think it's just been really good for our church culture to think about, hey, let's be a gospel culture. So,
yeah, I agree. It's been a good thing. I've enjoyed the shorter series too for a season. So that's not always my MO. I like longer stuff, but I think the shorter stuff has been good. All right. Well, Little Rock Church, call us if you need anything. We do love you so dearly.